The tragic story of Anne Frank will not be forgotten because of the words she left behind. Anne Frank was just like every one of us. She was social, she was fun, she was a loving girl with a tremendous imagination, and there were times when she was sad and depressed. She was extremely brave and was a very courageous young woman who, even through the bad times, could see the bright side of everything and everybody. She reminds us of what occurred through the eyes of a young girl who did no wrong and who could not have a normal existence. Annalise Marie Frank was born on June 12, 1929, to Otto and Edith Frank in Frankfurt, Germany. The German Jewish family of 4 lived in Frankfurt for the first 5 years of Anne's life. In 1933, Hitler took over as leader of the German government, and after the Nazis took over, Otto decided to move his family to Amsterdam, the Netherlands. In June 1942, as the Second World War raged, Anne received her diary. Otto gave this diary to Anne on her 13th birthday. He knew they were going to have to go into hiding soon, and he was concerned for Anne. This energetic and excitable girl had to be quiet. One of Anne's first entries in her diary reads,
"I hope I shall be able to confide in you completely, as I have never been able to do in anyone before. And I hope that you will be a great support and comfort to me."
In 1942, Germany invades the Netherlands, and the Frank family is in danger once again. The dangers become too great when Anne's sister, Margot, is called up to be sent to a German labor camp. The Frank family needed to escape the Nazis as soon as possible, which was led by Hitler himself. Hitler had a specific idea of the perfect person, and people who didn't fit Hitler's idea of perfect were arrested and sent to work camps or death camps led by the Nazi leaders, specifically to exterminate these people in very cruel ways. Jews were being killed just because they were Jews, and there were many restrictions against them.
Yellow star. Jews must hand in their bicycles. Jews are banned from trams and are forbidden to drive. Jews are only allowed to do their shopping between 3 and 5 o'clock. Jews must be indoors by 8 o'clock. Jews are forbidden to visit theaters. Jews may not visit Christians. Jews must go to Jewish schools, and many more restrictions of a similar kind. So we could not do this, and were forbidden to do that. But life went on in spite of it all.
The best thing for the Frank family to do was to go into hiding.
Into hiding? Where would we go? In a town or the country? In a house or a cottage? When? How? Where?
Anne and her family, along with 4 others, went into hiding for 25 months during World War II, in an annex of rooms above her father's office in Amsterdam. They lived in an area at the top attic of Otto's business. The door was hidden behind a bookshelf that was on hinges, so that way nobody could see there was a room up there. It was called the secret annex. It was quite difficult hiding in the secret annex. They could never go outside and have to remain silent all day. 8 of them were cramped in a little space, and it was tough for everyone, and the tension led into arguments, but they managed to do. They had to be very careful and lived in constant fear of discovery. When Anne went into hiding, the diary became even more of a support to her. Writing in it was a way of getting things off her chest. She began recording her thoughts, fears, ambitions, and amazingly enough, even optimism. Anne was sure of what she wanted to do in life. She wanted to become a journalist or a writer.
It's an odd idea for someone like me to keep a diary. Not only because I've never done so before, but because it seems to me that neither I, nor for that matter anyone else, will be interested in the unbosomings of a 13-year-old schoolgirl. Still, what does that matter? I want to write. But more than that, I want to bring out all kinds of things that lie buried deep in my heart. There is a saying that paper is more patient than man.
She wanted to get her diary published after the Second World War. She thought that perhaps her diary could be of interest to other people. In August of 1944, the Franks' worst fears became reality. Someone had betrayed the family. Anne, her family, and the others living with them were arrested and deported to Nazi concentration camp. In 1945, 9 months after she was arrested, Anne died of exhaustion and typhus fever at Bergen-Belsen at the age of 15. She died just weeks before her camp was liberated and just before the end of World War II. Edith, Margot, and Anne had all died, but Otto returned home to discover that he had lost his entire family. Meet Gibbs, one of the family friends that helped hide the Franks family, had kept Anne's diary all this time, hoping for Anne's return. When she discovered that Anne was no longer alive, she handed the diary over to Otto, saying, "This is your daughter, Anne's legacy."
I knew that Anna wrote a diary. She spoke about her diary. She left her diary with me at night in a briefcase next to my bed. I had promised her never to look in. I never did. When I returned, and after I had the news that my children would not come back, Miep gave me the diary, which had been saved by, I should say, a miracle. It took me a very long time to read it. And I must say, I was very much surprised about deep thoughts Anna had, her seriousness, especially her self-criticism. It was quite a different Anna I had known as my daughter. She never really showed this kind of inner feeling. She talked about many things, we criticized many things, but what really their feelings were, I only could see from the diary.
When Otto read Anne's diary, he realized that one day Anne hoped to publish it. Reluctant at first, but Otto eventually fulfilled his daughter's wishes by publishing the diary in Dutch, titled The Secret House, in 1947. It was soon translated into many other languages, in total 67 languages. In 1952, it was translated into English with the title of The Diary of a Young Girl. As her story was becoming more well known to people were interested in seeing the place that Anne hid in, the secret annex. So on May 3, 1960, the Anne Frank house was officially opened as a museum. Without Anne's diary, the world would be a different place. Her diary taught us about the horrific chapter of history. Because of Anne's story, people all around the globe are deeply touched through her diary. They gained an appreciation for all the sacrifices people made in the struggle to stay alive. Her diary is one of the first literary works to speak out against the Holocaust. She was a young girl and she knew what the Nazis did was wrong and wasn't afraid to speak out against it. She reminds us of what occurred through the eyes of a young girl who did no wrong and who could not have a normal existence. She made people understand the human story. She is a leader because she reminds us of who we are and what the world should strive to avoid. She stands for victims who lived at the same times as she did, just as much as the victims of today. She set out to fight all forms of racism. She taught us that it's important to stop hate and be positive. She once wrote, "Despite everything, I believe people are really good at heart." Anne Frank said she wanted to be a great writer one day. Her diary and stories are now published and very popular. 70 years after Anne started writing her diary, it is still being read. She wanted life beyond the grave, and she has that now. Her words live on in the diary she kept and the secret annex she had to live in. More importantly, her memory lives on in the hearts of all who have read her diary. Her legacy will never be forgotten.